Welcome to Go Read Your Bible, Sunday School for Adults Who Missed It. I'm Nicole Waltz, your host for this podcast, brought to you by 522gals.com, a website dedicated to personal development and spiritual growth. Go and check it out. And I have something extra for you guys this week. We are doing a giveaway because we are trying to grow and expand and reach more people. And we have already seen some tremendous growth, and that really excites me because it is amazing that so many women want to learn all of these stories about the people in the Bible who really lived and how their stories can impact your life today. And I'm so excited, and I have so much momentum. I want to keep it going and growing. So it would be really helpful, and you can enter our giveaway by going to our social media. We have Facebook and Instagram, and there will be a post you can find on our @522gals. That's how you look that up. Make sure you like and follow our social medias, and then comment on the giveaway post and tag a friend who you think will benefit from this podcast and from learning more about the Bible. Somebody you want to study, learn, and grow with, and that you're sharing this good news with. And so that's how you enter to win, and we are giving away one of my favorite versions of the Bible, one of my favorite editions, I should say, of the Bible. And so I think that is really fun and exciting, and I hope you will go to our social media, look for that post, and then tag a friend or comment and tag a friend that you want to study the Bible with, or that you want to listen to this podcast with, and you guys can discuss and talk about the things and how you're learning and growing. It's always better when we do things together. So with that said, we are continuing our series on the extraordinary life of Moses. And there is a lot of cool things that we are going to talk about today that, frankly, friends, is super relevant to my life right now. And I know it's going to be relevant to yours because Moses is somebody that we can identify with so much. And it's incredible that you can see yourself in his story and also know how chosen and utilized of God he was, even though he is an incredibly flawed individual. And so I think we can relate to that right away. And we are starting today in Exodus chapter 3, and we will start reading, and then we will talk about it as we go. We'll unpack what we're really seeing and how things apply to us. So let's get started in Exodus chapter 3. One day, Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led the flock far into the wilderness and came to Sinai, the mountain of God. Pause. Two things I want to point out to you. One, if that's familiar and you're like, Sinai, I've heard Mount Sinai, I'm familiar with that. That mountain is a very significant and important mountain. If you've spoiler alert, that's where he's going to receive the 10 Commandments later in the story. But this is the first time that we're hearing about this destination. And that is significant for you too. Because I think about these things all the time. Like when God knows that when you showed up at this one place at this one time, how later you would revisit that area and it will hold so much significance in your own life. And, just things that, God sees the whole picture and he kind of knows that something amazing is coming. And so it's really cool when you think about we're just mentioning this Mount Sinai and a big thing's about to happen here, but an even bigger thing is going to happen in the future. And God knows these things ahead of time. And it's just it's like these little Easter eggs kind of things worked into our story. It's foreshadowing or whatever from the Lord. And I'm always looking for ways that Lord is foreshadowing in my life right now. So I love seeing it in the Bible. And so anyhow, we're going to keep reading because we're going to get to some really good stuff today. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire in the middle of a bush. Moses stared in amazement, as we all would, friends. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it didn't burn up. This is amazing, Moses said to himself. Why isn't this bush burning up? I must go and see. When the Lord saw Moses was coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush, Moses, Moses. It says it 2 times. That's for great emphasis. He's calling on him twice. Here I am, Moses replied. Oh, friends, I'm unpacking every line I know as we go because that is an incredible response. to the Lord. Let's put ourselves in Moses' shoes for a moment. You're out tending sheep as you do every day. That's his life right now. That's what his day-to-day normalcy looks like. He goes off into this mountainside in the wilderness, and here's this amazing thing to look at. There's this bush that's on fire, but it's not burning up. It's just flaming. It's very interesting. And he's going a little closer, like, what is going on? And he hears a voice coming from the bush. And he just immediately knows. It tells me that his heart has always been turned to God because he recognized that this was significant. And he hears his name, Moses, Moses. And his response is not terror. We see that a lot in scriptures, that the Lord calls, or that an angel is spotted or whatever. And then their next line is always like, don't be afraid, because immediately people are usually terrified. But Moses, that's not the immediate response. Moses' immediate response is, here I am. We can learn a lot from just that. Let your response be, here I am. No fear, no terror. You know the Lord has what's best for you. You know he's seeking to tell you something important. You know he's calling you by name. And the response can just be, here I am. That we would learn so much from the life and story of Moses. Let's keep going. I'm going to try to go through a few lines without stopping. Let's see how far I get. Do not come any closer, the Lord warned. Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. When Moses heard this, he covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. He knew he shouldn't be able to see God. Then the Lord told him, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt, and I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them out of Egypt into their own fertile and spacious land. It is a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivitites, and Jebusites now live. Look, the cry of the people of Israel has reached me, and I have seen how harshly the Egyptians abuse them. Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people Israel out of Egypt. How incredible. Can we just talk about that for a minute? God is saying, and he says it to us now, friends, I have seen their suffering. Their prayers have reached me. I am ready for action, and I am calling you to be the person who provides relief. I'm calling you to an assignment for my people. I have heard their cries. Friends, we've got to stop and talk about this for a second, because this is one of those things that we get a little confused on, and we can see it throughout Scripture, but somehow we still get confused about how God works. And it's important for us to know. Often we're praying for a miracle, for God to show up and do something magical in our lives. And I'm using that word on purpose because often, myself included, even with everything I know in my entire history, and I still make this mistake, where I think God is literally going to be magical and just make something happen. And he can. Don't get me wrong. There's evidence that he can make things appear out of nothing, create something of nothing. That's throughout the Bible too. But more often, he utilizes people to answer prayer. God could have done a myriad of things. He's God, right? He could have just waved his hand and all the Egyptians died, and now the people could just take over Egypt, or just, be completely freed of whatever. He could make them all grow 10 feet tall, and now they're strong enough to just walk away. Or, there's any number of imagination, right, that could happen in order for them to be rescued. God could have just showed up himself to Pharaoh in like a fiery bush or in a cloud or whatever, and said, hey, let my people go, and talk directly. But he didn't do any of those things for his own reasons, because more often than not, more often that we see, God utilizes people to carry out his will. And that's important for us to know. Why? Because we're people he utilizes. There's people in Egypt crying out for help. And God's like, I'm going to help you, but I'm going to use Moses to do it. He needed Moses. He wanted Moses to fill this role, to provide help. We're like that. We are called to do certain things. We're called to activity. We're called to help other people. There's a need in the world for, sometimes it's simple. I mean, Moses is about to do a really big thing, but we don't have to necessarily, you could be called to a very big thing. Absolutely. You could be called to simple things. You could be called to, there's neighbors that you have in your neighborhood right now that are crying out for kindness, that are crying out for a friend, and they don't know how to initiate conversation. That's not their gifting. That's not their, whatever they've been through, right? Like that's not their experience in life where that's been beneficial or whatever. There's people who are lonely and struggling. There are people who need help that you could easily provide. And you have to be in tune with the Spirit to say, God uses people to answer those prayers. You could be that person that maybe you're answering someone else's prayer because you just went over and said hello and started talking and struck up a conversation. And now they feel less lonely. And that is God answering their prayer through you. God uses people in small ways and enormously big ways. But if we can be faithful in the small callings, God can use us in the bigger callings. In this case, meanwhile, Moses, just a moment ago, the Lord called him by name and he said, "Here I am." He was very excited. He responded correctly. And now God has given him this instruction. He's laid it all out and said, I've heard the suffering. I'm gonna let my people go. I want to free my people. And you're gonna go to Pharaoh and you're gonna lead them out of there. And Moses is not gonna be as quick with his "here I am." So let's keep reading. Because it's a big ask, right? You understand. I don't know if you remember from last episode, when Moses had killed a Egyptian slave driver and it has run away to the wilderness. He is living in Midian, run away. It's probably been somewhere around 40 years to this point. I forgot to tell you that before I was setting the stage. We if you do the research, it's somewhere about 40 years that he has spent on the run, in the hideout, and away from his people, right? And so a lot of time has passed. I think he's probably done a lot of self-reflection. He's living a good, simple life. He's shepherding. And I believe he's been a man filled with integrity. That's part of why God uses him. But in any case, he's been removed from this. He ran away because he was, the Pharaoh there, King Pharaoh is after his life. He's going to have him put to death, retaliation for what he had done. And so God immediately asking him to go back to Egypt has got to be pretty terrifying for Moses. He's not just like, "Yep, sounds like a good idea, Lord. Okay, if that's what you say, I'll go." That's what our response should be. But it never is. Like, let's be honest. I don't know anyone who immediately responds when God's like, "Go do this." I want to be that person. I want my spiritual growth to get to the point where when God says, "Nicole, I want you to write this book," I'm just like, "Okay, God, I'm sitting at my computer and I'm going to just write." I'm like, "No, I can't do that. Who would read?" You know what I mean? Like, you have all your excuses for why you're not acting and whatever. Well, that was just an example, but whatever that God's telling you to do, our immediate response is more often to make excuses for how we're unqualified. And Moses is no exception. The great Moses is going to do incredible things and be a big deal in history is not a big deal yet. He's not anything yet. He's a man living in hideout in a desert, away from everything that he was raised around, away from his people. He is a content, mild-mannered shepherd, and he is about to be a biblical superhero, and he doesn't even know it. And he doesn't want it, friends. He doesn't want it because his response is let's see, verse 13. But Moses protested, "If I go to the people of Israel and tell them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they will ask me, 'What is his name?' Then what should I tell them?" And God replies to Moses. This is a big deal, friends. This is quotable, memorable stuff here. God replied to Moses, "I am who I am." And in my Bible, that's in all caps. The whole "I am who I am" is all caps. "Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you." God also said to Moses, "Say this to the people of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my eternal name, my name to remember for all generations." Pause. It's really significant and important for me to tell you that this is the first time that God is sharing his name, what he's actually to be called, which is Yahweh, which I don't think we use enough, to be honest. Even myself, I'm trying to use it more because I know this. And this is very significant because before we're just always calling him God, or, they're just the God. There's a lot, you have to understand cultural context. There's all kinds of gods being worshipped in different cultures and society, all over different tribes or cities or countries or whatever. They're all worshiping their own set of different gods. Worship is as old as time, and it's all different. And so that's like kind of just to say gods is just like an all-covering blanket there. And then they just always refer to him as like the God, like the head God, but they're never naming him. So this is a big deal that he didn't tell Abraham. He said Abraham was a friend of God, but he didn't even share his name or what to call him with Abraham or with all the descendants up until now. This is the first time we're getting the name of God, which is Yahweh. And that's incredible. Let's keep reading. "Now go and call together all the elders of Israel. Tell them Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me. He told me, I have been watching closely, and I see how the Egyptians are treating you. I have promised to rescue you from your oppression in Egypt. I will lead you to a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivitites, and Jebusites now live. The elders of Israel will accept your message. Then you and the elders must go to the king of Egypt and tell him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. So please let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer our sacrifices to the Lord our God. But I know the king of Egypt will not let you go unless a mighty hand forces him. So I will raise my hand and strike the Egyptians, performing all kinds of miracles among them. Then at last he will let you go, and I will cause the Egyptians to look favorably on you. They will give you gifts when you go, so you will not leave empty-handed. Every Israelite woman will ask for articles of silver and gold and fine clothing from her Egyptian neighbors and from the foreign women in their houses. You will dress your sons and daughters with these, stripping the Egyptians of their wealth. Pause. We have got to talk about that. So many things. I am envious of Moses, and we're going to get to it. It's going to be so good. It's good when for me, I've read ahead. I know where we're going with this. God is giving Moses the thing I beg for on a regular basis. And this is where I'm telling you, people don't change, and God knows what he's doing. And we think one way, but we respond another. Here's the truth. God appears to Moses in a miraculous sign, in a bush that is inflamed with, engulfed with flames, and is not burning away, not lessening in the fire. It's just this amazing sight to behold. And Moses knows he's talking to God, and God has this in-depth conversation with him. But the most amazing thing is that he's giving him the entire blueprint. I ask God for the blueprint all the time, and I don't get it. That doesn't happen for me. It's very rare that I get a glimpse at the big picture. He's literally giving Moses the entire plan. You're going to go. You're going to go to Pharaoh. You're going to tell him to let my people go. But I know he's not going to listen to you. And so as a result, I'm going to have to do a lot of miracles. There's going to be some signs. I'm going to deal with him harshly. But eventually he is going to let you go. And when he does, you're going to go away favorably with gifts. You're going to be well provided for. Your children's children, are going to be well provided for as a result of this. He's given them the whole picture. That's so rare. And Moses is not like, what you would think as this hero of faith would be like, absolutely, God, thanks for the plan. I'm on my way. I'm going to go pack my bags right now and head to Egypt like you said. That's not what Moses is going to do, friends. So even with the whole plan, the whole blueprint in hand, he is not going to say the thing that he should say, which is, I'm on my way. Yes, sir. Nope, not what happens. Let's keep reading. We're in chapter 4, verse 1. But Moses protested again. Now, see, I told you we could identify with Moses, right? Because Moses has the whole plan and God is talking to him from a burning bush. And he is still like, hold on, God. I don't know about this. So he literally says, what if they won't believe me or won't listen to me? What if they say the Lord never appeared to you? Or like, I just told you that they will listen to you. But look, this is God showing us his patience. Everybody thinks that the God of the Old Testament is super harsh, but I'm seeing a lot of patience in the God of the Old Testament, right? He's showing up to you in this incredible way, telling you what to do. And you're still like, well, what if you're wrong? I mean, think about it. Moses is literally literally saying, what if you're wrong, God? What if they don't believe me? You just told me to go do this and told me that they will believe me, but what if they don't? And the Lord is patient with Moses. Let's keep reading. We're on verse 2. Then the Lord asked him, what is in your hand? A shepherd's staff, Moses replied. Throw it down on the ground, the Lord told him. So Moses threw down the staff and it turned into a snake. Moses jumped back, as we all would, friends. Then the Lord told him, reach out and grab its tail. So Moses reached out and grabbed it, and it turned back into a shepherd's staff in his hand. Perform this sign, the Lord told him. Then they will believe that the Lord, the God of their ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, really has appeared to you. Hold on. Can we just talk about that for 1 second? I know I should just keep reading, but I can't. Largely, I am, pretty terrified of snakes. I think a lot of people are, whatever. I think this is hilarious that God's he's like, what if they don't believe me? I don't really want to go to Egypt. And God's like, throw down that stick, and the stick turns into a snake. Think about how you would feel. What would be going on in your mind if that was happening for you, right? If you threw a stick on the ground and it turned into a snake, that would be shocking and whoa, what is there's a lot to process there. But then God immediately says, pick it up by its tail. Now, friends, I'm not a fan of snakes, but the one thing I do know is you do not pick them up by their tail. You never try to reach for a snake by its tail. Why? Because the dangerous part is in the mouth, on the whole other side, that when you go to grab for its tail can swing around and bite you. It's Moses just does. He just immediately obeys the Lord. I find this peculiar, to say the least, because here we have Moses arguing with the Lord, really, doubting and having, and it's normal. I'm not blaming Moses. I'm saying I identify with it. I would probably do the same thing. But I think if I threw a stick on the ground and then and it turned into a snake and God was like, pick it up by its tail, I'd have some hesitancy. I think that's where I'd be like, I don't know about that, God. Are you sure? Was that you? Is that the devil in my brain telling me that? Because that sounds like a terrible idea. No. This is where Moses faithfully listens. I think that's hilarious because that's something I would have not listened quickly to. I'll tell you that right now. But Moses does. So it's weird that he's having this argument about making the journey and going to speak to the people. But he had zero fear, right? Was not afraid to pick up a snake by its tail. And then it turns back into a stick that's like, what? I mean, I feel like I'd have a lot more things to talk about with God after having witnessed that. But the Lord just keeps going. He just keeps going because he knows Moses needs the encouragement, right? He's so patient with Moses. He's not like, what? You don't want to listen to me? Fine. You're just dropped dead because you're disobedient, don't want to listen. I'm moving on to the next person. That could be something that he could do. But he doesn't because he's actually loving and patient and has a plan. So he keeps going, and he already knows that Moses is going to protest again. So before Moses has a chance, he gives him a second sign. So we're on verse 6. Then the Lord said to Moses, now put your hand inside your cloak. So Moses put his hand inside his cloak, and when he took it out again, his hand was as white as snow with a severe skin disease. Well, that's a terrifying, miraculous sign. Keep reading. Now put your hand back in your cloak, the Lord said. So Moses put his hand back in, and when he took it out again, it was healthy as the rest of his body. The Lord said to Moses, if they do not believe you and are not convinced by the first miraculous sign, that'd be the stick thing, they will be convinced by the second sign. And if they don't believe you or listen to you after these two signs, don't even bother protesting again. I have a big plan, Moses. Just keep listening. Then take some water from the Nile River and pour it out on dry ground. And when you do, the water from the Nile will turn to blood on the ground. So the Lord is proactively dealing with all the thoughts coming into Moses' head, all the doubts. And it's this weird balance that Moses is in. And I think, maybe it's just me, friends. Comment and tell me if it's just me, please. I think most Christians can relate to this. I can relate to this. Where God is telling you, believe God for all these big things. I do. But then in this conversation, Moses is still like, okay, but God. Okay, but what if this? Okay, that sounds terrifying, though. Okay. He's giving him so much. And now I think Moses is like, okay, I know God is with me, and I know he really wants me to do this. But perhaps he hasn't considered that I'm not qualified in any way. So Moses is going to continue the argument. We're on verse 10. But Moses pleaded with the Lord, "Oh, Lord, I'm not very good with words. I never have been, and I'm not now, even though you have spoken to me. I get tongue-tied, and my words get tangled." That's interesting. I think we skip over this part. "Oh, Lord, I'm not good with my words. I never have been, and I'm not now, even though you've spoken to me." He's like testing it out. He's stumbling over his words through this, realizing he's not qualified for this, even though, maybe perhaps, Lord, you haven't considered that I am not the right person for this. I mean, I find this so relatable. Let's keep going. He gets tongue-tied. So some people think he stutters. Some people think he is kind of, I don't know what it's called, but it's kind of like when you're dyslexic with your speech and you say your words out of order. So there's some different speculation on what exactly was Moses' problem, but the consensus that people rely on is that he was a stutterer, as I just did, for emphasis. That was from purpose, sure. But now is when the Lord is kind of like, okay, Moses, let's keep going. We're on verse 11. Then the Lord asked Moses, "Who makes a person's mouth? Who decides whether people speak or do not speak, hear or do not hear, see or do not see? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will be with you as you speak, and I will instruct you on what to say." But Moses pleaded again, "Lord, please Send anyone else. Can we just be honest and recognize in all the ways? I have heard people teach on this and be very critical of Moses and be like, I can't believe he acted like that. The Lord has given him all these signs. There's this bush, there's this snake, there's a healing hand, there's clear instructions, a blueprint of what has happened. He's given him everything. And Moses is still protesting. And that I've heard people tell the story like they can't believe anyone would behave like that. And I'm like, be honest. I can believe it. And not only can I believe it, I can identify with it. And it is a place to learn and grow. Because if we're honest with ourselves, we can learn and grow, right? We can recognize what should be happening. But a more better story here, more amazing thing to see, is God's continued mercy and God's continued action on his divine plan for Moses' life. I picked you. I saved you. He doesn't tell him any of this. I'm saying for our sake. I saved you when you were a baby and the babies were being wiped out. I saved you when you were floating down the Nile River in a basket. I made sure that your own mother got paid to raise you. I protected you and gave you a good life in a palace. I led you to this amazing place where you're a shepherd, where you've run away and you have a wife, you have children, you're in a good place. You have a good life. I have protected you and watched out with you. I knew this was going to happen. I had a plan for your whole life, and I have been taking care of you this whole time, and you have shown you all these signs, and you are still feeling unworthy and still doubting your calling. And the Lord is continually patient with him, although and now is slightly irritated, because the scripture tells us at verse 14, then the Lord became angry with Moses, as we all would, right? All right, he said, what about your brother, Aaron the Levite? I know he speaks well, and look, he's on his way to meet you now. He will be delighted to see you. Talk to him and put the words in his mouth. I will be with both of you as you speak, and I will instruct you both in what to do. Aaron will be your spokesperson to the people, and he will be your mouthpiece. And I will stand in the place, and you will stand in the place of God for him, telling him what to say. And take your shepherd's staff with you, and use it to perform the miraculous signs I have shown you. So Moses went back home to Jethro, his father-in-law. Please let me return to my relatives in Egypt, Moses said. I don't even know if they are still alive. Pause, because we skimmed right over that. That wrap-up conversation with the Lord, this miraculous, long conversation with the Lord. And I just got to say, I just see his mercy all over that story. Because Moses continually protests. What if they don't believe me? What if they still don't believe me? Well, Lord, I'm a bad talker. And the Lord is comforting him through each one of these concerns. He's like, okay, I got your back. Don't worry. And Moses still comes down to the bottom line after God has answered every one of his excuses and concerns and complaints. And Moses is like, please send anyone but me. I can't do it. I'm not qualified. Friends, this makes Moses highly relatable. Have you ever felt like, please God, anyone but me? I can't do it. And still, God has patience, even though it says he's angry. So I would say irritated would be a better word here, but, translations. In any case, he still comforts Moses even in this. I mean, it's kind of a slap in the face, right? Like, you're God telling him your name for the first person ever, showing him all these incredible signs, promising to be with him. And he still doubts. But his doubt wasn't in God. His doubt was in himself. his own qualifications, his own ability. And even though God said, I'll be with you, he was like, I'm not sure that's going to be enough because I know me. And God said, don't worry. I know you too. We all need to hear that, friends. God knows you too and what you are capable of, even when you doubt. And he had so much patience. And he's like, fine, I'm going to send your brother, and your brother's going to, apparently you need a wingman. I'm sending you a wingman. Fine. And that's the end of the conversation. Moses doesn't protest anymore. He has gotten every response from God he could have asked for. And he knows this, I have to do this now. Like this is God. This is Yahweh telling me what the next step in my destiny in my life is. And so he goes home to his father, asks to be let go. I think it's funny. He doesn't tell him. He doesn't say, hey, I just had a conversation with God. He's wise about what he's sharing. I think he's probably still processing. And he wants to go home to Moses. And so Jethro says, his father-in-law Jethro, go in peace. Before Moses left Midian, the Lord said to him, return to Egypt, for all those who wanted to kill you have died. This is a weird place to me for this one particular verse. It tells me something, though, that somewhere in this conversation with God that he was having, he still had one more worry that he wasn't sharing. In that particular Mount Sinai burning bush conversation, he had one more fear that he hadn't brought to God. But it sneaks it right in this weird place, which tells me that a couple days have passed, a little time. He went home to his father, did the right thing. Father-in-law did the right thing, asked for permission to leave, like let him know, was packing up his family. And somewhere in that, some worry is creeping in. And so it has to be, because it doesn't give us any context, but this random verse just gets placed in the story that the Lord tells him, return to Egypt, for all those who wanted to kill you have died. He's reassuring him again. You have nothing to worry about. I'm with you. The things that you're worried about is not what's important. Although there's going to be some challenges for sure. But he's just trying to comfort him as much as possible. I think that's an incredible, when we can see God through the right eyes, right? When we can see the goodness of the Lord. Let's keep reading. So we're on verse 20. So Moses took his wife and his sons, and put them on a donkey and headed back to the land of Egypt. In his hand he carried the staff of God. The Lord told Moses, when you arrive back in Egypt, go to the Pharaoh and perform all the miracles I have empowered you to do. But I will harden his heart, so he will refuse to let the people go. Then you will tell him, this is what the Lord says, Israel is my firstborn son. I commanded you to let my son go so he can worship me. But since you have refused, I will now kill your firstborn son. Well, that's got to be a terrifying message to be going to give Pharaoh. But here we are on the way. Verse 24. On the way to Egypt, this is a little interesting passage, friend. We'll talk about this. I'm going to read through it and then we'll talk about it. On the way to Egypt, at a place where Moses and his family had stopped for the night, the Lord confronted him and was about to kill him. What? Did you read that? The Lord confronted him and was about to kill him. Oh, okay, we're going to circle back. Let's keep reading. I'm going to explain. But Moses' wife Zipporah took a flint knife and circumcised her son. She touched his feet with the foreskin and said, now you are a bridegroom of blood to me. When she said a bridegroom of blood, she was referring to the circumcision. After that, the Lord left him alone. Now the Lord, pause. Okay, so we got to talk about that for a minute because it's this weird thing in Scripture. And I actually did some research to be sure that I was sharing accurate information. In any case, this is like a weird passage. Here's God showing up to him in a burning bush, telling him his name, sending him on assignment, doing all these things. And then, he's on his way to do it. And it says, the Lord confronted him and was about to kill him. I'm like, whoa. So what we can get out of this is that we've missed a part of the conversation. A part of the conversation that's been happening with the Lord and Moses hasn't been shared with us clearly. And here's why I know. I know for a multitude of reasons, but one of the reasons is Zipporah, the wife, immediately knew what to do. She immediately knew. So this is me reading between the lines. I'm just going to share with you. We know when God talked to Abraham from the beginning, he said, I'm making a covenant with you. Circumcise all your sons, grandsons, children, so on. All the baby boys, all boys must be circumcised. And that is a sign of their covenant with me. That's the sign. That's the seal. That's the deal between us. I will protect you. I will make you a great nation. I will give you children, as many as sands and stars and all the things, right? This is my covenant with you and the generations through you. But as a sign of this covenant on your side, you will circumcise the boys. That's the sign. That's the deal. That's the blood covenant, right? Moses knew this. Moses knew it. He was still an Israelite. He was still familiar with his family and their customs. He knew. He would have been circumcised himself because he was a baby and was kept hidden for quite a time before he was put in the basket and all that stuff. So he would have been circumcised because it was supposed to happen on the 8th day. That was part of the command. In any case, that tells me that Moses and Zipporah have had this conversation. What we don't know for sure is what kind of religion that Zipporah's family, we know her father, Jethro, was a priest and was a Midian priest. So he was a religious leader, but I don't know exactly of what. Like what was their faith, what was their gods that they worshipped or what have you. We know who Moses had always worshipped. We know that he had always known and followed God. So I believe that him and Zipporah have had a conversation about the value, importance of circumcision on his family side, and he lost that argument. He seceded to his wife, submitted to his wife that we will do what you want to do in your father's house and your whatever belief. And he let it go. Now here he is on his way to carry out a very big assignment from the Lord. I think the Lord reminded him to be in covenant. And I think he didn't want to go against the wife. This is me. We're reading between the lines, but it makes sense, right? Because the next thing we see here is he's on his way to follow and listen to the Lord, and the Lord showing up very upset with him and intended to kill him because he's not honoring covenant. Covenant, friends, is very important to God. We see that all throughout Scripture. And that's what Jesus has already come. So we see a lot of things in Old Testament that Jesus fulfilled, and now we have access to through Jesus. So we don't have to follow all of these details from the old, we don't have to do it. It's nice. I'm not against it. I think it's a good idea, but I don't think it's a requirement anymore. That's a change in grace versus the law. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I just want you to understand that at this point, that covenant is very important to God. So much so that it tells us the Lord showed up intending to kill Moses. And Zipporah immediately knows what to do. They've had a conversation, friends. And she circumcises her son right quick. I'm sure that was a mess. And then she yells at him about it. Now you're a bride. She's mad. She didn't want to do it. I think in context, it's all there, even though we don't have like the whole story as it would be written out in a nice little book. You can figure out what was probably going on there. And so now that was it. That's all we get. Now we're just going to keep reading as if that didn't happen. But it's important to know that that's how valuable and important covenant is with God. And it will continue to show up in Moses' story. We're on verse 27. Now the Lord had said to Aaron, go out into the wilderness to meet Moses. So Aaron went and met Moses at the top of the mountain of God. That would be Sinai. And he embraced him. Moses then told Aaron everything the Lord had commanded him to say, and he told him about the miraculous signs the Lord had commanded him to perform. Then Moses and Aaron returned to Egypt and called all the elders of Israel together, and Aaron told them everything the Lord had told Moses. And Moses performed the miraculous signs as they watched. Then the people of Israel were convinced that the Lord had sent Moses and Aaron. When they had heard that the Lord was concerned about them and had seen them in their misery, they bowed down and worshiped. I don't have too much to unpack with you there, friends. I just want to point out that God was right. No big surprise there. He told Moses, you're going to go and you're going to show them these signs and you're going to tell them that I am coming to rescue them and you're going to tell them my name is Yahweh and they are going to believe you. And so it was. And so they did. And the best part is that they immediately believed. It doesn't say that they argued. It doesn't say they said, yeah, but what? Like Moses had, right? They responded to what they were being shown and told. And they believed that the Lord had heard them and was coming to rescue them. And their response was to worship. I've seen other things happen in the world, friends, and in history and even throughout the Bible where the immediate response is to complain or the immediate response is to doubt. But it's better. It's the good response. The best response we could get is what they do here. Their response was to worship. That should always be our response when God is showing up in our lives, when God has come to the rescue. Sometimes it's easy to doubt, like Moses did, or to hesitate, or it's even self-doubt. I don't think his doubt was in the Lord. I think his doubt was in himself. And so even that self-doubt, they weren't like, I wonder how God's going to do that. How is that possible, Moses? This is no way Pharaoh's going to let us go. Like, no way. This is it. Nope. They bowed down and worshiped. And I think that is a big deal. And I think that is a big help into the process of what's going to happen over the next big exciting part of the story, next several weeks of the story. In any case, I am enjoying going over the life of Moses with you because I find him so relatable. And there's a lot of really, really important things that we just know about the Bible. Like the burning bush is pretty recited. Like, I guess it's pretty known even outside of like growing up in Sunday school or anything like that. You've probably still heard of the burning bush, right? And so now you got to hear the story. And Moses has a lot of key things in his life that are referenced in culture, even if it wasn't referenced in your church, if you weren't in church life, So I think Moses' story is super relevant and we get a lot of cool things out of it. I hope it encouraged you today. I hope you'll read this story for yourself because you always should. And you should perhaps meditate on and think about, where do I need to respond to God more quickly? Where is my doubt? What am I hearing from the Lord right now? And what is he asking me for? And am I prepared to just say yes? Where is my areas of doubting and weakness? And how can I show up and help somebody today and be a light, be Jesus in their lives and just show up for someone else? And I think that when you ask in earnest for those things, God will show you what he has for you and how you can be used to be a blessing to other people, because that makes everybody's life better, right? Purpose, intention, that makes everybody's life better and makes the world a better place. And you can have a hand in that. No matter how big or how small, God is calling you to do something incredible today. Friends, I have loved reading our Bible together, and I can't wait until next time. But until then, girl, read your Bible.